This is Nick Fuentes talking about Tucker Carlson's viral moment with Mike Huckabee, about Zionism and all that stuff. Let's listen to what Fuentes said about it here.
Is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Monday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story tonight, we're going to be talking all about Tucker Carlson's interview with Mike Huckabee. Have you guys seen this?
We watched it previously on this channel, so if you want to see the whole thing, I covered all of it. It's on here.
Should say, did you see it before it was taken down? And we'll get into that a little bit. Actually, it seems that the original interview was actually removed because Tucker Carlson made potentially a libelous allegation against the president of Israel, said that he was on Epstein Island. He, in fact, was not.
Is that real? I mean, I don't trust a word out of Nick Fuentes' mouth, but he's the last person to defend Israel. That's interesting.
We're going to be talking all about this wide-ranging interview between the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, and Tucker Carlson. Some very interesting stuff, and obviously it was a bombshell. The biggest aspect of it that I want to get into tonight is about this claim regarding Greater Israel. And I got to give credit where it's due. You know I'm not Tucker's biggest fan, and we have kind of a feud going lately.
I mean, he should be groveling at Tucker's feet for allowing him on Tucker's podcast to talk about his white nationalist garbage.
But I will say, the biggest single aspect of this interview is that it exposed, I think explicitly, maybe for the first time, the Greater Israel Project. And to his credit, Tucker flipped this whole narrative about Israel's right to exist on its head. And it's something actually that we've discussed on this show at great length. Whenever you talk about Israel, whenever you talk about Palestine, the war with Iran, any of this stuff, and specifically whenever anybody criticizes Israel, you get hit with this question. People say, well, does Israel have a right to exist? And then that's typically followed by, well, if Israel has a right to exist, does it have the right to defend itself? And that's typically followed by, therefore, Israel can do whatever it wants. They can people, kill civilians, preemptive strikes, you name it.
Not that Nick Fuentes has a problem with people. He absolutely doesn't. In fact, he wants that. It's Israel that's the problem in the equation, not the genocide part.
And we've talked about that actually specifically on the show last week. What was amazing in this interview is that Tucker actually got to the center of that question, Israel's right to exist. And where does that actually come from? And the answer was very interesting. Mike Huckabee had a two-part answer. He said, in the first place, there's international law, which makes sense. Modern countries and borders and states are established by international agreements, peace agreements after wars, diplomatic conventions. But the big one, and this is what makes Israel unique, Israel's right to exist, they claim, derives from the Bible. There is a God-given right for Israel, according to the Jews.
Right, that was the bottom line. At the end of the day, that's what Huckabee was arguing.
According to the modern-day Zionists. What's interesting, though, about that claim and about that God-given legal right to exist is that it isn't just for the modern territory that Israel controls. It's actually for like the entire Middle East. It's for half of Egypt. It's for the Sinai. It's for some of Saudi Arabia, some of Iraq, all of Jordan, I think all of Lebanon or most of it, right up through into central Syria. And so what's very interesting in the interview is Tucker said, okay, well, if Israel has this right to exist, and where does that right come from? If it comes from the Bible, then who is to say that Israel doesn't have a claim to the whole territory, to the whole Middle East? Mike Huckabee's answer was even more interesting. He said, well, they do have a right to it. As a matter of fact, Israel has a right to everything west of the Jordan River, so that's modern-day Israel and the occupied territories of Palestine. But also, Huckabee seemed to be saying they also have a right to the rest. And the rest is, like I said, all those countries. That's like most of the modern Middle East.
Actually, I watched it, and I got the impression that Huckabee was dodging. He feels that way, but he didn't want to come out and say that openly. I just created a new website, firesidewatch.com. You can watch videos with friends, and everybody can play or pause the video. I made it so I could collaborate with other YouTubers, but I figured I might as well make it available to everybody. On top of that, you can add videos to the queue, upvote them, and sort by most upvoted. Give it a look, firesidewatch.com. And while you're at it, check out my Patreon, owenmorgan.com/Patreon. You can follow me there for free.
Or something like half of it. And it seemed that very quickly he recognized the problem, he recognized the mistake he made, and he tried to walk it back and said, well, I don't think they're really going to do that.
Right. That's true.
And I don't think they're going to go for that. That's not really in the cards. But it doesn't change the fact that that is actually what a lot of Israelis believe. That's what the founders of the state of Israel believe. There's actually a whole ideology named after this. It's called revisionist Zionism. And they believe that Israel is everything west and east of the Jordan River, everything from the Nile to the Euphrates. And if that's the basis of Israel's statehood, this biblical claim, well, then this is an intellectual problem that Zionists have to deal with when they're defending Israel.
Yep, I agree. I am very opposed to Israel as the country as it is now. They should not exist as it is now. They should be forced to operate under a federal government with integrated militaries as an independent state within a federal government, like West Virginia and New Jersey. We would have Gaza, Israel, and the West Bank, with a federal government over top of them that controls the military, not Israel.
Is to say that they don't have a claim and that they might not lay claim to it or pursue that claim in the future if it comes from the same place as this right to exist. So that was truly spectacular, and we'll talk about it tonight. This is drawn condemnation from almost all the countries in the Middle East: Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, the Arab League, Organization of the Islamic Conference. This has provoked now an international incident. So credit where it's due. I think Tucker did a phenomenal job. Fantastic job. It wasn't, I don't think, as good as it could have been. I'm going to nitpick a little bit. But I do think that by itself is a massive victory and a very important development. It's a very important refinement in the conversation about Israel, because it's a question that needs to be answered. If Israel has this right to exist, what actually does that entail? What are they entitled to in terms of security guarantees, weapons, land, support, all of it? That's a question that needs to be answered by the pro-Israel camp. Now, here's the second thing we have to get into, and I think this was a serious mistake. I don't think this is nitpicking, and this is also having to do with the interview. During the interview, and this didn't provoke as much of a response, but I think it raises an eyebrow, because this is a narrative I see everywhere now, and I see it being promoted by some of the most prominent critics of Israel. During the same interview, Tucker raised the question of...
Sorry, I got a message. Hey, Owen, yesterday you used a web app with notes and markers in a video of Tucker and Huckabee. What web app was that? Not to toot my own horn. That was, who has two thumbs and wrote his own web app? This guy. It's mine. It's called Briefcase. I named it Briefcase. And yeah, I was just basically, this is it right here. I was just downloading the video that we're watching now.
And this is again related to the claim of Israel's right to exist. Tucker questioned whether the modern day people of Israel, those who claim to be the Jews, the same Jews with continuity going back to the Old Testament, and therefore that claim that was given to Abraham for all this land, Tucker questioned whether the modern day Jews are those same Jews. Are they the same people? Is the modern day state of Israel comprised of the same people with the same ancestors?
Problem with Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and everybody else is that they genuinely just fucking hate Jews. And there's no other, basis behind it. There's no other explanation or reason for this or whatever. They just hate Jews. And you have to be careful, I find, with everything that they say to make sure that you're not falling for some shit, to make sure they're not, pulling one over on you or whatever. Because they do that a lot. They try to slip in completely illegitimate criticism with legitimate criticism. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case some thing happens with the government or whatever, it would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that. And maybe you should consider that for other creators too.
The same patronage, or I should say, I don't know what the word would be for that, but you understand they descend from those people. And then therefore, is this the same Israel? Is this actually the same kingdom they're seeking to establish from the Old Testament? And he said about this, and specifically regarding Bibi Netanyahu, he said that these people that have moved to Israel from Central and Eastern Europe, these so-called Ashkenazi Jews, he said they are from Poland. He said they're not from the Middle East. They're not Middle Easterners. And so the implication is maybe they're not the real Jews. Maybe they're not the real people of the book. Maybe they don't have actually a claim to the land. And this is a question which I see being raised not just by Tucker, but also by Candace Owens and Ron Unz.
Oh my God, Candace Owens. I mean, I don't think that, I'm pretty sure that Nick Fuentes does not like Candace Owens and even uses her name as a slur. Like, what in the Candace Owens is going on here? I guess that's not a slur. That's just making fun of her. But the point is, these people are all vile. Like, all of these people that we're dealing with are evil in the things that they say and do and think and believe. You just have to be careful.
And by Alexander Dugin, and
I don't know who that is.
Many others in the Israel critical space. This is something you see and hear all the time. They say that Israel is not made up of real Jews. And by real Jews, again, they mean people that come from the Middle East. They mean the people of Abraham and Moses, the people that fled Egypt, the people that established the kingdom of Israel, that were expelled by the Roman Empire. There is this persistent narrative that those people are lost, and the people in Israel now are interlopers.
Like, I don't even think this. I'm sure that they have a connection that goes back to like original Judaism or whatever. But I don't believe in any of this stuff anyway. I don't believe that there was a house of David necessarily. I think the evidence for this is paper thin. Possible, it's just paper thin. I think the Ashkenazi, the Mizrahi, and Sephardic groups are probably from the same original group of people who all practiced Judaism, if I had to guess, and they just all kind of spread out. The problem is that this is the basis for genocide at this immediate moment. This is the basis for like the claim that they own this entire region, and I think that's wrong.
And how exactly they came to identify as Jews, that's a matter of contention. And some say they are Khazarians.
No, please, dude. Now we're getting into the conspiracy theories. The Khazars, I believe, are some Jews that, like, they converted to Judaism thousands of years ago, and now they run, like, a mafia or whatever. It's just absurd garbage, obviously. It's conspiracy theory shit that you heard a lot with QAnon.
Khazarians are this Turkic steppe people from Central Asia that came to identify as Jewish during the Middle Ages. And they settled in Central and Eastern Europe. And this is from where the Ashkenazi Jews came. This is one of the ideas. Other people say maybe it has nothing to do with the Khazarians, but Ashkenazi Jews just aren't Jewish at all. And it's some kind of elaborate LARP. It's some kind of case of mistaken identity. And not only is this false, this is totally false. This is just...
Is he saying the Khazars are false? Interesting.
Scientifically disproven. There has been now a massive amount of literature created on this. There's been a lot of genetic testing and a lot of science. And there's a lot of data out there which show that Ashkenazi Jewish people have Levantine DNA. They do have the same DNA as people from the Middle East 2,500 years ago.
I don't think that's the case. There is no common Semitic lineage. They're not related to each other. The Semites are not, Semitism is not a common heritage. It's a language grouping. Do they have Levantine DNA? Like from the Levant? Let's find out. No need to wonder. Just loaded up our question gun. Let's go answer hunting. Not that it really matters to me. That doesn't justify Israel doing the fucked up stuff they're doing right now. Okay, Ashkenazi Jews do have significant Levantine or Middle Eastern ancestry. This is well established in population genetics. But the key question is, hang on. Yep, I guess so. It looks like they do have Levantine, or like from the Levant, Levantine DNA. It's true.
So this has been debunked. This is not any theory which is supported by evidence. There's no intellectual rigor there. This is something that was invented about 100 years ago. And now that we have modern genetic testing, which is widespread, this has been thoroughly debunked. And not only is this false, but I think it's a very pernicious and harmful narrative. And I also question if there's a political motivation there. Because if the people in Israel are not the Jews, well, then what does that make them actually? I guess then they're just white people. And I really don't like the implication there because...
My God, dude, what is wrong with him? He is such a fucked up human being. This is what 4chan does to you if you imbibe in 4chan as a 14-year-old. This is what happens. Let it be a warning to all young children. Don't get on 4chan or this will happen to you.
You hear this in a lot of left-wing circles. In a lot of left-wing, anti-Zionist, anti-racist circles, guys like Max Blumenthal and some of the other usual suspects, this narrative is very popular. And they say that what Israel really is a settler colonialist project by white people. If Netanyahu is just some Polish person, well, then he's just some white person from Europe who doesn't belong there. Then he's just another colonizer. He's just another white colonizer that is oppressing indigenous brown people. And you hear this, again, this is very common among the left. And
I've never heard this on the left before, ever. Anytime the subject of anti-Semitism pops up at all on the left, it's usually to condemn it. I've never heard somebody on the left say that they're white colonizers. Has anybody ever heard that before from any of their left-wing friends? Yeah, no, this is not some like core left-wing position. I've never heard this before in my life. And apparently there is some strain of anti-Zionist discourse on the left that says this, but it's extremely uncommon to come across this. Usually the people who conspiratorially like make shit up about Jews, usually those people are on the right, not the left. But okay.
Anti-racist, anti-Zionist circles, because this is part of their broader narrative, which is anti-white and anti-colonial. So they will say that Netanyahu is just another white supremacist who's...
This is nonsense. Nobody is saying this, basically.
Lost. Just another white supremacist settler from Europe who doesn't belong in the Middle East. And not only does that then become an attack on white people, but it takes away from what Israel really is, which is Jewish supremacy. Netanyahu is a Jew. The Israelis are Jews. The Ashkenazim are Jews. The Zionist project is based on Jewish mythology. And the way in which they treat the native people is based on Jewish chauvinism, which is sourced from the Old Testament.
I agree with that. That's true. That's how it works. Doesn't matter. I'm Jewish because my mom is. I had a bar mitzvah. Right. 100%. If people are Jewish by culture, then they're Jewish, right? The way I see it is Judaism is really more of a cultural, religious experience or whatever. And it doesn't really get deeper than that. But when you start getting into, by the way, Kootmaster, for what it's worth, it looks like, there is like original Jewish DNA there. But either way, the only people that seem to care about whether it's like a genetic thing are extremists, like right-wing nutcases who are trying to determine if they're real Jews or fake Jews, if they deserve to be here, there, or whatever. Those extremists, and also right-wing nationalists, Jewish people, seem to be obsessed with the DNA aspect of it as well. And their right to control this group or live in this place or whatever. That's my read on it.
It comes straight out of the Jewish Bible. It comes straight out of the Talmud. When the Hebrew Bible is telling them genocide Amalek, kill the women, kill the children, kill everybody. And the Talmud says you have to spit on idolaters, kill idolaters, all that sort of stuff. And then in the modern state of Israel, they're murdering civilians, and Netanyahu says that's Amalek. Palestine is Amalek. Well, you can see there is a genetic lineage that goes back to Israel, and there is an intellectual lineage.
Okay. We're dealing with one of those extremists that's obsessed with Jews in one way or another, so buckle up. An intellectual lineage? What the fuck could that possibly mean? An intellectual lineage, okay?
That goes back to the Jews. So I don't like this. This is not true, and this is a deception. This is a false narrative, and I don't think that's innocent. I don't think that's a mistake. That's not an oopsie. So we'll talk more about that, but that'll be our big story for tonight. I was going to talk a little bit about the tariffs. We're probably not going to get into that because we have a ton of stuff to talk about. I do want to also talk a little bit about the war in Iran, which seems to be upcoming. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this tonight because we spent all week talking about Iran. There's really not much more to add right now. We'll talk a little bit about it at the beginning of the show, and then we'll spend the bulk of the time talking about this Tucker Huckabee interview because it's a big deal. But before we do
the Tuckerbee interview, if you will, that's how I prefer to refer to it. The Tuckerbee interview. Yes, we're going to talk about the Tuckerbee interview.
I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Check out our merch store at fuentes.store.
Okay, we're jumping forward. No, thank you, sir. It's got a giant stupid fucking flag.
And I go, hey, good afternoon. So don't expect like you're going to get a different guy. Like if you send me a stupid super chat, I get mad. If you go in the group chat and you're annoying, I get mad. And honestly, it's crazy. It's actually crazy because I go into the group chat in the morning, afternoon, whatever, and I try. Like I try not to spike my cortisol. I try to talk to you people. And I log in, I go, hey, good morning. What's going on, everybody? And then it's immediately dumbest shit you've ever heard, just one after the other. Today, I go in there, I go, hey, good morning, everybody. What's up? First comment, literally first comment, airplanes. That's
so stupid. Okay, I didn't realize. I didn't get the joke at first. My dad used to say stupid shit like that. That's pretty funny, actually. I appreciate that. He says airplanes. What's up, airplanes? That's funny, dude. I appreciate it.
Today, I go in there, I go, hey, good morning, everybody. What's up? First comment, literally first comment, airplanes. That's what's up.
That's good. I like that.
Airplanes. And it's stuff like that. It's almost just like, this is rage bait that AI could never recreate. It's like, it's not even, it's just like, what do you even say to that? It's so not fun.
I'm definitely not in on the joke. What's up, airplanes? Airplanes are up in the sky. Airplanes are high up. He asked what's up, like, what's going on? You know, how are you? And somebody interpreted it as what is up above us. And so they said airplanes. It's an old, stupid joke, but it's some shit my dad would have said. And I thought it was funny.
Funny. It's so not, it's just pure irritation. I don't even know how you would categorize that. It's just like verbal diarrhea. It's just pure goy slop, pure goy feed, straight from the goyim's mouth. That was literally the first, like I'm drinking my morning coffee, I'm working myself up. Hey, good morning, everybody. First dumbass, airplanes.
Hey, come on, man. I think it's funny. I appreciate it. This poor dude is getting just shredded. I know he's not listening, so, I don't care. I want his feelings to be hurt because he's a fucking neo-Nazi, but I appreciated the joke anyway. And also, it's a joke, right? Like, chill the fuck out. Why are you so pissed off over nothing? It's not that big of a deal, honestly.
I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for the punchline, like.
That was the punchline. You too stupid to get the joke? You're not smart enough?
Holy, I tried to, then I locked in, I swallowed my rage a little bit and I was able to have a normal conversation. But like, this is the level of the discourse. So it's a little bit painful at times, but we're working on it. So that's America First Plot.
Come on, that was funny. You got to give it to him. That's funny. That's some funny shit right there.
So it's a very dynamic situation. It seems like there still is some negotiation occurring, or at least there's a dialogue. But not much has changed. We continue to see, again, massive deployment, massive mobilization. And all signs point toward there's going to be some kind of a military action. Again, the question is just timing, mode, and the goal. All that being said, I put this out on Twitter today. It's important to take a step back and really consider the entire situation. I like to say on the show all the time that everything is related to everything else. And I think about what this says about the Trump administration. Because at the same time that we have half of our Air Force in the Middle East, and we have 2 carrier strike groups, we have the Patriot missile batteries and the THAAD systems, and we're moving our military all over the place, pulling out of Syria, moving our troops out of Iraq. We are literally moving heaven and earth here. And the latest is that Trump is furious that our military capabilities are so limited. He wants
Okay, I haven't heard that.
to go in heavy and hard, and he wants to topple the government in a short amount of time with a massive use of force. And he's frustrated that it seems that we have a limited ability to do that. That however we go in, it's going to be a protracted conflict. There's going to be other additional elements that will have to come into play, like some kind of ground force. And
I appreciate that Nick Fuentes is opposed to the Iran war. I do not want a war with Iran. We're already fucking naming it. I don't want that. That would be bad. Very, very fucking bad. And, you know, Trump has like this obsession with putting his name all over everything. He wants to be unforgettable from history. And that's why we have to erase him from history completely. We have to tear down the ballroom and or rename it the Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, one or the other, or both. But this is one of the things he wants to do. He wanted to take Greenland because that would be irreversible. And he wants to take Iran because that's irreversible. I don't think Trump cares about how many people he needs to commit to this fight. I don't think he cares about how many people are going to die as the result of this war. I think he just wants to be remembered permanently. And that's why we need to reverse literally everything that he does. Everything. Every single fucking thing.
it's going to be very complicated. But you take...
We shouldn't erase him from history and what he did, but we should absolutely tear down the ballroom, give back Greenland if we try to take it, give reparations to Iran if we end up going to war with them. We need to reverse all the shit that he did. We cannot let that shit stand.
You take a step back and consider.
The thing is, he tried to do this stuff to be famous. We can't allow that to stand, you know?
It's going to be very complicated. But you take a step back and consider, at the same time that we have this Herculean effort to overthrow the government in Iran, think about what cannot be accomplished in the United States. We had 3,000 ICE agents and Border Patrol in Minneapolis. Think about this. How many National Guard did we ever deploy to any of the Democrat cities? I think we had 300 in Chicago at one point. We had a few hundred in Minneapolis. Couldn't even sustain that. So I said this on Twitter. At the same time that half of our armed forces is in the Middle East for yet another regime change war for Israel, we can't even deploy 5,000 National Guard and Border Patrol put together to liberate an American city. Minneapolis is controlled by Somali scammers.
No, it isn't, but okay.
Working with the Democrat Party machine in the city, working with the shithead radical left communists that are agitating in the streets, Hollywood, the media, they have control over Minneapolis.
You mean people are just living their lives in Minneapolis, and you don't think they should be allowed to just live their lives in Minneapolis, or what? You think they should be under military occupation? I don't understand.
Who runs one of the nicest states in the country with the best healthcare and education and government efficacy? Who runs that state? Well, it's Jacob Fry, who said, "Get the f*** out of our city, ICE." And it's
after they murdered people. Obviously.
Tim Walz, and it's a bunch of Africans that are Muslim that shouldn't even be here, and illegal immigrants and communists, like those idiots that got killed by ICE and Border Patrol. That's who runs America. That is a sampling of who runs our country. Who runs Chicago? This militant black communist, Brandon Johnson, and the gangbangers and the burglars and the carjackers and criminals. Who runs New York? Muslim socialist, the homeless that are everywhere, that are in the subway, that are leaping over the turnstiles, won't pay the fare.
Please, dude. Look, he has no place to talk about New York City and what they're up to unless he lives there. I'm from New York City, from Manhattan. He has no clue what he's talking about right now.
Socialist, the homeless that are everywhere, that are in the subway, that are leaping over the turnstiles, won't pay the fare. That's who runs.
It's just complete bullshit.
This is who runs America. This is who runs the United States. And for most of the country's population, that is who runs your government. That is who runs your economic center. Most of the population lives in these Democrat shitholes or near them in a big Democrat state controlled by a major Democrat city with a huge Democrat state government. And that's who's pulling the strings there. Liberal billionaires, city machine politics, these deadbeats that work for the Democrat Party, radical college students, Antifa, and the illegal immigrants, the foreigners. This is who runs America.
Sounds like an awesome place to be. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, Trump, this complete piece of shit, is throwing his weight around and imposing his will on everybody around him.
This is where all the tax dollars go. Apparently, that is who controls the major cities. They have veto power over borders and immigration law. And you can't deploy 1,000 National Guard to even one of them. You can't deploy a few thousand Border Patrol and ICE to even one of them. Tried it. Sent the National Guard and ICE and Border Patrol to some of the cities. And what happened? They got resisted. They got shoved out, and ultimately they retreated and surrendered and said, you know what? You have it.
Yeah, why the f*** do you think that is? Because nobody f***ing likes you, Nick Fuentes, or Donald Trump, or what they're up to, or what they want. Nobody likes that shit. Nobody wants it. Stay out. You have no place in the States.
That's what happened in LA with the riots. That's what happened in Chicago when people rioted outside the detention facility in Broadview. That's what happened in Minneapolis. So Trump tried to fight for regime change in our country, where maybe we would be able to walk the city streets at night safely. Nobody
lives in fear of walking the city streets at night in New York City, for example, the world's largest city, or one of them anyway. This is certainly, I think it's the biggest city in the United States, right? At least. I walk the streets at night all the time. My kid walked the streets, 14 years old, walking through New York City alone at night, and I had absolutely no fear that anything was going to happen, and nothing did. We lived there for 5 years. And, you know, she'd take the subway at night home. Nothing happened. Everything was perfectly fine. Never any issue whatsoever. It's a perfectly safe place to be. These cities are run really well by and large. It was getting worse financially because of Eric Adams, that dipshit. But by and large, de Blasio cleaned things up reasonably well. He generally didn't do much. De Blasio didn't. But things ran reasonably well under him and kind of coasted under Eric Adams, aside from all of the corruption. And things are only set to get better under Mamdani. So I don't even know what you're complaining about here. I wouldn't have gone to 125th Street at night, East 125th. I wouldn't have gone to 169th Street stop in Queens at night. Couple of spots that I would avoid. But overall, it's a perfectly safe place to be. I was on 125th Street East one time, which is Harlem, because I was going to pick up my car or whatever, move it. And out of nowhere, I heard a lightning strike. Boom! It was so loud. I thought it was a gunshot, and I ducked. And everybody around me, ducked too. And they're like, oh, shit. It was pretty funny. Anyway, there's really nothing to be afraid of in New York City.
From criminals and vagabonds, where we could have borders, not be inundated with illegal immigrants, so we could fight corruption, not have all our tax dollars stolen by African Muslims that are here on TPS.
That's not happening.
That didn't work. And Trump gave up after a year. And I say that, by the way, as a resident of a suburb outside Chicago. And I had some expectation. I didn't vote, so I didn't have very high expectations that Trump might actually use our military and security and police power to restore order in America, in Chicago, in LA, in Minneapolis, in New York. And not just the law and order and the public transit, but also on the immigration front, that we would actually have a country. But year in, we don't have it. At the same time, and this is really the gut punch, at the same time that we are being told by our America First president, no, we can't restore order in Chicago, too complicated. We can't restore order in Minneapolis. The protesters are too fierce. We have half of the fucking military in the Middle East again. Really?
Yes, exactly. Oh my God. There is a difference between fighting a foreign war and fighting a domestic war, though. They're definitely different.
How insane is that? Go and look at a globe, go on Google Maps, and look at how big the oceans are. How big is the Pacific Ocean? How big is the Atlantic Ocean? And we have half of our military on the other side of the planet, locked and loaded, getting ready for this huge undertaking, so expensive, so complicated, so risky, so unnecessary, to topple another government, because 10 wasn't enough.
Right, exactly. Oh my God.
So risky, so unnecessary, to topple another government, because 10 wasn't enough. Wasn't enough to do Iraq, Syria, Libya, Lebanon. None of this was enough. Egypt, twice. Afghanistan. Now we got to go into Iran for the benefit of Israel.
I think it's Iran.
What Israel wants, Israel gets. This has been their mission for 45 years. They have been pushing us to do this for the last quarter century. Think about how messed up that is and what they are willing to do. Get Minneapolis under control? Can't do it. Impossible. Too difficult. Tim Walz and Jacob Fry and Antifa? We got to draw this down. We're going to stick to deporting only the criminal illegals. This is too difficult.
Again, they haven't even fully left Minnesota. They're still harassing people nonstop. They won't just let people live their fucking lives. But either way, a domestic war is different from a foreign war. You can't, when all of the citizenry is turned against you and you have trouble setting up shop, in a city and everything else, it's just not doable.
Oh, but the 1 million man Iranian Revolutionary Guard and military, country of 90 million people on the other side of the planet, well, it's going to be tough, but no one ever said it would be easy. What? How can anybody claim at this point, seriously, that this administration is America first? I just don't even know how you could say that with a straight face.
Right?
And I see it on the timeline all day long because I'm complaining about this. I've been talking about this on my show, on Twitter. I say, look, MAGA is dead. It's over. This was supposed to be a movement for the forgotten men and women. We got forgotten. It was supposed to be about putting America first and redirecting our attention inward towards our problems as citizens rather than outwardly towards the world's problems and other countries' problems. Obviously, that's not the case.
So I just looked it up out of curiosity because Yargenchi says that Iran or Iran are proper pronunciations, either one. It looks like Iranians pronounce it Iran. So that's a correct way, but Iran is an Anglicization common in American English. Kind of like how technically the word Neanderthal is pronounced Neanderthal because Germans don't have a TH sound, and Neanderthal is the English Anglicization or whatever. I say Neanderthal, actually. Knowing a bit of German, I still use Neanderthal. Or the Thule Society is actually the Tula Society, not the Thule Society. Because again, they don't have the TH sound. So, all right, I guess it can be pronounced Iran or Iran.
All you need to do is look at what is happening here. Leaving Minneapolis, deploying to the Persian Gulf. Couldn't hack it fighting Antifa, fighting that nurse and the lesbian poet. That was too dangerous. But we're over there fighting Iran's 1 million man army. All you need to do is look at what's happening.
Well, war usually raises popularity. Domestic war, I guess you could say, usually lowers popularity. You're fighting the people that are supposed to be voting for you. So if you're fighting somebody else who isn't supposed to be voting for you, and you're telling the people who are supposed to be voting that is going very, very well, even if it isn't, then you're less likely to kind of lose credibility or likability or whatever. And as we know, the Trump administration is susceptible to public polling or public perception or whatever. Public pressure, that's the word I was looking for. They are susceptible to public pressure. They are not immune to public pressure, put it that way. That's probably why they want to fight in a foreign war rather than a domestic one.
And yet you have Trump's biggest defenders on Twitter every day saying, don't black pill. If you're not on board with this, well, you're not serious. Grow up. That's not how politics works. Tell me then, please, how politics works. I'm waiting for Trump's biggest defenders, for J.D. Vance's biggest defenders. Tell me how politics works. At what point do we get what we want? We voted for law and order and borders how many times since 2016? Voted for that in 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. We're coming up on 26. When do we get it? When is that even a priority? When are they even going to try? I'm really unhappy with what we're getting. I'm growing impatient. You tell me now I'm not serious. I just don't know how it works. I need to grow up.
Well, like I said, I mean, fighting in a domestic war is less popular than in a foreign war, and we know Trump is susceptible to, public pressure. That's why this is happening. The fact is, what Nick Fuentes wants is going to lead to massive backlash. It's going to destroy our economy, put it that way. Nick Fuentes wants to remove 20 million people from our economy. That's going to lead to massive economic shrinkage. It's bad. He knows that, but he doesn't care. He wants Trump to do it anyway. He just doesn't understand how much Trump loves attention. Trump was never your man for this.
We can't just burn it all down. Okay, well, you tell me, at what point do we liberate the country? At what point do we stop liberating the Middle East and we start liberating us? We're talking about Iranian protesters and Iranians' aspirations for freedom and Iran. And okay, what about Minnesota? What about New York? What about Illinois? What about California? Can we liberate this? And they say, well, we can't do that. Surely it's possible. Surely. If you could kidnap Maduro, if you could go into Iran and bomb Fordo with a 50,000-pound bomb, if we could have half of our Air Force over there, surely we could handle Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's not even that big of a city. That's a start. How many Somalians even live there? 90,000? Seriously? So how many are in the Revolutionary Guard? 500,000? You can't deport 90,000 Somalis that are just idiots. They're just disorganized idiots. They got bows and arrows. They don't even have a legal right to be here.
Wait, who's he talking about? I'm sorry, one more time?
In the Revolutionary Guard, 500,000? You can't deport 90,000 Somalis that are just idiots. They're just disorganized idiots. They got bows and arrows.
I'm not sure what he's talking about. Somalis are not idiots.
They don't even have a legal right to be here. Can't do
Most of them do
it. They're setting up an autonomous zone. Renee Good, the lesbian, and the other guy, the male nurse, they're setting up a autonomous zone with a couple of garbage cans.
What are you talking about? Nobody set up an autonomous zone.
In the intersection. Oh my, no, we can't send ICE in there. Too dangerous. Yeah, but let's go and fight the whole Middle East. Again, let's go and fight Hezbollah, the Houthis, the PMF, IRGC.
Wait. I thought that it was pronounced the Houthis. According to Mike Huckabee yesterday, he said it's the Houthis, like the Houthi and the Blowfish or whatever. That's how he was saying it. Is that right?
The Ayatollah, they're not even trying. They're just not even trying to make the case anymore. And that's when I say I'm out. I'm for America first. No regime change in Iran. Let Israel figure it out. Let them fight their own war. Let's figure out what's going on over here. We should not even be thinking about the Middle East until there are 0 Haitians in Springfield, 0 Somalis in Minneapolis, 0 Venezuelans in Houston.
And he's not saying undocumented. He's saying 0 Venezuelans. He just doesn't want Venezuelans or whoever to be here. He doesn't like them. It's so fucking disturbing, dude.
Now we can figure out, everybody else's issues. We have the situation in Mexico. The whole country just blew up, cartel violence. We have our hands full over here. So, like I said, I don't really have too much to add in terms of predicting the outcome here. We don't have a ton of new information. And we spent all week breaking down the force posture over there and what that indicates about where it's headed. But at what point do the middle American radicals that served as the base for Trump's movement, at what point do we wake up and realize we are being screwed? We are not getting what we wanted.
You are being screwed by not being allowed to screw others. You're being screwed by not being allowed to hurt other people, to take their rights away. That's you being screwed. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? How do these people come to the conclusions that they come to? It is absolutely fucking insane.
And we have to get up and say that loudly. We have to let them know. Who? The GOP. Let the Republican Party know. I'm a voter. I'm a registered Republican. I'm not me in particular, but you. I'm a registered Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a white male. I'm a Christian. Maybe I voted for Trump once, twice, 3 times in the past. This is bullshit. This is not what we were promised. We've been fighting this battle for 10 years now, and we still don't have a border wall. We have more illegals here now than we did 10 years ago. That's insane.
Yeah, okay, I suppose we do, but who fucking cares? Why do you care? I don't understand. Why does any of this matter to you?
If anything, the cities are worse after the summer of love.
They really are not worse. The cities are perfectly fine. Again, like I said this before, but New York City is a perfectly safe place to be. I lived there for 5 years, just recently moved out. I don't want to hear it. It's completely full of shit.
With George Floyd, cost of living, it's all worse.
The cost of living is bad. Absolutely. Housing and everything is insane.
At what point are people going to take their own side, stand up and say, I'm not getting what I voted for. I'm not voting again. You didn't earn my vote. Sorry. You sold me something in 2024. You didn't deliver it. I'm not coming out in 2026.
He thinks that's going to be the message when people don't vote in 2026. He thinks that the message is going to be Republicans aren't extreme enough. You poor dumb fool. You should know by now that the message when Republicans inevitably absolutely lose is going to be Democrats are very, very unhappy with what you've done. And you are all f***ed. Have you guys seen the Texas numbers? Like the Texas, what do you call it? Like Texas, God, what's the word? Primary numbers. Have you seen the Texas primary numbers? Texas early voting in primaries usually has about 70% Republicans to 30% Democrats. So if 70,000 Republicans vote in the primary, about 30,000 Democrats vote in the primary. That's generally, or like early voting in the primary. Generally the split, 70,000 to 30,000. Well, guess what? Early voting is happening right now, and I'm not sure where it is at this immediate moment, but I checked it just the other day, so I'm not sure how far along it's come since then. But as of last I checked, 400,000 Republicans had voted in the primary, 500,000 Democrats had early voted in the primary. So we are outnumbering by, like, we shouldn't even be coming close. It should be a 70-30 split. Instead, it's a 60-40 the other direction. I think Texas is going to go blue, in all seriousness. Fully fucking blue. The old models do not apply anymore. And there is some Republican apathy. Like, some of them have chosen not to vote. But over anything else, basically twice as many Democrats are now voting. Double what it was before.
Now, you can figure out what to do after that loss. GOP has to get obliterated in 26. They have to be annihilated. You got to send them a message.
They're going to be. And it's not going to be because you said you have to send them a message. It's going to be because Democrats are coming out to vote in numbers never, ever seen before, to a degree that the old models just don't apply.
I saw somebody say recently They said,
and you know what? I'm sorry, one more thing. And here's one of the other factors in this. When they gerrymander, they increase the number of seats for Republicans at the expense of making them closer races. I'm not sure. Hang on. Let me see. I'm pretty sure that Texas successfully gerrymandered. But yes, it went through. It did, yeah. Something that Texas did not account for, apparently, is that Democrats are coming out. They are actually the silent majority, as it turns out. They're coming out in droves. I think Texas fucked itself with the gerrymandering. I think that shit backfired egregiously. Wait and see what happens. Something called 270towin.com. I don't know if you guys have been here before. It's really cool, but it's an interactive map that you can like click around and look at and everything. In my opinion, just about all of these are going to go blue. Practically everything. We're going to see a wave of blue that we haven't seen in this country maybe ever. I suspect that nearly everything here is going to turn blue. We might even have a supermajority. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
A message. I saw somebody say recently, they said the GOP is not going to be hurt if you don't vote and they lose their majority. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And we need to send them home. Send them home, hurt the GOP, and let them know in 2028, we need a regime change in the Republican Party.
Yeah, they're fucked. Republican Party is completely and totally fucked.
That's the only thing that's going to work for us. I'm not voting. I'm not working for the GOP if this is the outcome. And I say that. I'm a real human being, okay? I'm a real 27-year-old male, paying taxes, white guy, very conservative, partially Hispanic, okay? Full disclosure, living in Cook County, okay? I'm an American. I'm a constituent. I'm a citizen. And life has not gotten better for me in the past 10 years.
Oh, bull fucking shit, dude. You're a millionaire now. I don't want to hear it. Life hasn't gotten better for you. Please. You're on the top of the fucking world right now. What are you talking about?
There is not any more law and order. Economy's not better. There's still tons of illegals. I am not satisfied. I'm not happy. And I should be. Democrats get elected and look at what they do for their people. That's all you need to know. Democrats get elected and they say, how are we going to make healthcare more affordable for our voters? I know. Let's make the Republicans pay for it. Hey,
no, that's not what happens. But okay, whatever.
Why not, right? That's what Democrats do for their people. Democrats say, we're just going to forgive your student loans.
I mean, look, it's a crisis. There's an affordability problem. There's a reason that they do this stuff. It's not just because they don't want to pay for stuff anymore or whatever. He has to know this, right?
All these college students and young people that voted for us, yeah, we're just going to eliminate their debt.
That's not what's happening, but okay.
Is that good for the country? Probably not. I don't know. But they do things for their voters. They get elected on affordability, things like that. They say, we're going to make healthcare affordable. We're going to wipe out your loans. We're going to create reparations for blacks.
But that's not even being floated. That's not even something that's being discussed. What are you talking about? This is not something that we're moving toward.
We're going to allow your immigrant relatives or your foreigner relatives to come in under chain migration.
Yeah, chain migration is like a right-wing conservative neo-Nazi term where they bitch about this. This is a completely fabricated problem. Setting aside the fact that immigration is good for a country, it raises a GDP, it makes a country more powerful economically and otherwise. Chain migration, quote unquote, is not a problem that exists in the real world.
We're actually going to tangibly do things for you. Again, I'm not a Democrat. I think that's ruining the country. It's not sustainable long term. But that's just like a taste of what it is to vote for your own interest. And over here on the GOP side, we make excuses for why we're getting screwed royally. They're selling us a war with Iran while they're telling us we can't deport people. Can't deport 1 million people. You're out of luck. Go to war with Iran? By any means necessary, Netanyahu. Yes, sir. Right? Am I insane? Deport a mere 1 million people in a year. Impossible. Cannot be done. But the judges, but the Democrats, but the protesters, problems, always problems. Topple A government with 90 million people and 1 million soldiers? No one ever said it would be easy. But where there's a will, there's a way. It will be done, Prime Minister. It will be done. Like, we are being screwed here.
You're just now realizing that? The dude is, Trump is as corrupt as they come. He never gave a fuck about you.
So people should not lose sight of things. The timing is very interesting, isn't it? Pull out of Minneapolis, go to the Persian Gulf. Yes, just what we ordered, right? Just what this whole thing was always all about. Isn't that the conceit of MAGA and Trumpism and America First? Ignoring the actual quality of life of native-born people to go fight foreign wars for special interests in Israel? If that's the program, why didn't we just vote for Jeb Bush?
Right?
Why didn't we just vote for Marco Rubio the first time? What was the point of all of it if this is the outcome? Am I crazy? They can spin it any type of way, but there is no border wall. There are no mass deportations. We don't even have the tariffs. What we do have, Assad is gone. Iran is going. Like that is what we do have on lock. Harvard has a Jewish president. I can sleep easier at night knowing Shabbos Kestenbaum, his conscience will not be offended by the protests against the genocide in Gaza because Harvard now has a Jewish president. Thank God. So anyway.
Jesus Christ, dude. He really does not like Jews.
That's the situation in Iran. But like I said, no other major developments. We will be watching that very closely throughout the week. And one thing I will say about it, so I told you on Thursday, there have been these reports, first in the Wall Street Journal, I believe on Thursday, and then today in the New York Times. So these are two different reports, but they both say the same thing. I think in Axios as well. They say that Trump is considering a limited, narrow strike on Iran to extract capitulation. Hit Iran very lightly, very softly, in the hopes that Iran will...
Don't fucking hit Iran at all. My God, dude.
Agree to a deal. And by that, I mean agree to the ultimatum, which is to give up their nuclear enrichment, give up everything, and surrender to the United States. And then, if that doesn't work, then Trump is considering a more thorough, sustained strike, which is aimed at toppling the government. And that would be weeks long. We're talking weeks of heavy, hard air power all the time.
Heavy, hard air power. My old high school nickname.
Blowing up their missile launch platforms, blowing up their Air Force, air defense, government, military leadership, all this stuff, in the hopes that eventually the regime just crumbles. And that's not really going to work. I don't believe in that option, but that's sort of the idea.
No, that's not going to happen.
The only thing that's new is that Trump has now publicly denied these claims. So this is being said in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, I believe elsewhere too, but these are some exclusives. And they say Trump wants to do this limited strike, and then if that doesn't work, then he's going to do more. Now Trump has said on Truth Social that is false. He said there are no doubts within his camp. There's no reservations. He said everybody is on board. And if we go to war with Iran,
I bet everyone on board, totally.
Then we're going to war. It's not going to be a wait and see approach. It's not going to be a surgical strike and then see what happens. Trump has confirmed it's a deal or it's nothing.
I believe that Trump is going to try to go to a war with Iran, and he's going to go all in my opinion, because he wants people to remember him. That's what it's all about for Donald Trump, being remembered. For better or worse, good or bad, he wants people to remember him as the person who started the war with Iran, or whatever.
We're either getting a capitulation or we're going to war. And as you know, as I've said over the past couple weeks, I don't think we're getting a deal. There's been so much talk in the papers about these negotiations and concessions being made and last-ditch diplomatic efforts. Long story short, when you strip away all of the rumors and hearsay and all this stuff, what you'll find is that at the bottom of it all, the fundamental positions have not changed. Washington has a red line on enrichment, and so does Iran. They're just the opposite. Washington's red line is that Iran must give up enrichment completely. No token enrichment, no 3-year restrictions, none of that. Washington is demanding give up your entire stockpile and give.
This was all agreed on already. We already had a deal in place for all of this, and Trump ripped it up. It was called the Iran nuclear deal, and they were following expectations. They were allowing people into their facilities to inspect and everything.
Give up enrichment, and that's it. We can do a consortium in Saudi Arabia. We can export enriched uranium to you so that we can control it, interdict it if necessary, but we are not letting you have that native capability. On the flip side, Iran says we are never giving up enrichment. It is our right. It is our pride. We're never giving it up.
They didn't say that, as a matter of fact. They did give it up, not even that long ago. And we are in the position that we are in now, currently, as a direct result, as a consequence of Donald Trump, his doing. He made every part of this happen.
The most that they have offered is that they might give up half of their stockpile of highly enriched uranium, and they might agree to temporary reductions in the level of enrichment. But that is as far as they have taken it so far. Now,
that's just not true. You're completely ignoring the Iran deal.
If there's going to be a deal, one of these positions has to change. Either Iran is going to have to surrender, capitulate, this is the word that Witkoff used, and they're going to have to just give it up and make themselves completely vulnerable and defenseless. That's one scenario. Then you have a deal. In the other scenario, Washington will have to agree to something less than zero enrichment and a total forfeiture of the stockpile. They're going to have to agree that Iran can enrich at a low level for a period of time in exchange for sanctions relief.
He literally is describing the Iran deal that Trump canceled. He is literally describing that right now.
And monitoring and compliance. Now, this is how you know that a deal is never going to happen. At least this is my heuristic, and I guess time will tell. This is my insight. How do you resolve this equation? The reason that Iran will never give it up is
they already did. They won't give it up because they don't fucking trust the Republicans anymore, because they already reversed the deal that was in place. It did exactly what Nick Fuentes is describing.
Because if they do, they can expect that Israel will go to war anyway.
That's not true. Israel didn't go to war with them during the Iran deal. We protected Iran verbally by pointing out that they were respecting the guidelines of the deal or whatever. And they were left alone largely. And sanctions were lifted and things were pretty good. And then dipshit Donald Trump comes along and says, I'm ripping up this deal. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to accomplish that deal in the first fucking place? That was one of the most difficult deals to get done in U.S. diplomatic history, because we were working with a bunch of religious fucking nutcases in Iran who believe that they have like the sole right to control the region or whatever the fuck. Just like, Israel seems to believe that type of shit. Do you know how hard it is to make deals with people like that? And John Kerry got the deal done. Nearly the first fucking thing that Donald Trump did upon walking into the White House was erase the deal. They're talking about literally doing the deal that was already done when he got into office in the first place.
And that is liable to happen. Israel will sabotage any deal like that. Any deal that doesn't include missiles and proxies, Israel's going to sabotage anyway. If Iran gives up its nuclear hedge, that just gives Israel the opportunity to strike Iran with impunity. And they might do that anyway. So I don't think it's in the cards that Iran is going to fold. On the other side, the United States cannot accept anything less than zero enrichment because in 2015, when the United States made the initial Iranian nuclear deal, it was the same program. It was sanctions relief, monitoring and compliance in exchange for temporary reduction in the level of enrichment for uranium.
It was indefinite reduction in uranium enrichment.
That was the protocol in 15. We'll relieve the sanctions, we'll get your economy going, but in exchange, we need to ensure that you're not enriching uranium past a certain limit. That was the original framework in 15. Now, in the interceding 11 years, Iran has been significantly weakened. Their proxies have been neutralized, their nuclear program has been set back years, and their missiles, well, we don't know the status of them, but perhaps their offensive and defensive capabilities have been degraded as well. So the United States cannot, after 10 years, after all this time and all this fighting and sabotage and everything, with Iran much weaker than they were then, cannot now agree to the same deal that allows Iran to have a native enrichment capability. That will be seen as a strategic defeat. If we scrapped the original deal because it wasn't good enough, and then we went to war with Iran and we bombed them and sanctioned them and did all these things to them, and they survived, and in the end, they got a deal that is as good, if not better, than when they started, then that is a major strategic defeat.
It is, yes. It was a major strategic defeat when Donald Trump ripped that shit up. That was the stupidest. And it wasn't just Trump. Trump probably didn't even care about the Iran deal. Ted Cruz and all of the Republican establishment insider fucking scumbags would not shut up about how bad the Iran deal was. It was the Republicans' fault, and it's over for the Republican Party, okay? They are done. No more Republican Party. They aren't going to win for a generation because they have so completely and totally fucked themselves. They are completely done. They are caricatures at this point of a bad political party that has gone completely rogue, that has no soul, that has nothing going for them, no popularity, no nothing. They're a caricature. And they aren't going to win for a generation because nobody fucking likes them anymore because they've gone too far now. They have gone too far.
In the end, Iran will be able to claim victory. We didn't give up our enrichment. We didn't give up our nuclear program. We endured the worst of maximum pressure, the worst that the U.S. had to throw at us, and we got what we wanted. So we cannot come off of that red line. It's never going to happen, in my opinion. And that leaves us to a war with Iran.
Yep, exactly. It's exactly right. We are here as a direct result of dipshit Republicans. Good job, guys. I hope you're happy with yourselves.
The question is just when. When and how and in what way, that's the only question. Will there be a decisive air campaign now? That seems less likely because I don't even think that's possible. But will there be imminent military action? That is very likely. The question is just when does that decisive confrontation occur? Do we hit Iran really hard now? Set them back many years in terms of missiles, nuclear, and the rest of it? Do we decapitate the regime? And then maybe a period of time passes where Israel and the United States are backing secessionist groups, anti-government groups of different stripes, liberal groups, maybe different ethnic factions, royalist factions, you never know.
Apparently, Iran was dealing with a protest again fairly recently, and their standard method of dealing with protests is to execute protesters. But they showed the UN video footage of basically Israeli insurgents coming into Iran and stoking the protests. I don't know if it's true. I don't know. But they showed it to the UN Security Council, I believe. And then they executed a bunch of them. I don't know. Kind of wild. Actually, let me just look this up.
Maybe we go in, we degrade their security apparatus that allows CIA and Mossad to come in, stir the pot, and then you get another round of protests. And then we topple. But the point is, a decisive confrontation, military confrontation is all but inevitable. Again, the question is just, what's the timeline? What's the strategy? What is the level of U.S. commitment? And I guess we'll see in the next 2 weeks what that's going to look like. But that's the situation in Iran. Like I said, we'll monitor that. I do want to move on. I want to get into our featured story tonight, which is about Tucker Carlson's interview with the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee.
Right, the Tuckerbee interview. So Iran, apparently, at the Human Rights Council session, some speakers supporting Iran's position claimed the video evidence showed firearms being used by trained individuals operating among crowds who coordinated acts of sabotage and violence, framing it as a foreign interference. Iran's deputy ambassador at the Security Council emergency meeting accused the U.S. of trying to cover up its involvement in instigating unrest. So Yes, Iran did present claims of foreign-backed insurgents at the UN, though footage of Israeli insurgents is not exactly what happened. Did they execute all the protesters? Not executed in a judicial sense. They basically just opened fire on crowds. So, is it likely the protests really were Israeli-inspired? The protests were clearly driven by genuine domestic grievances. The Rial had lost approximately 40% of its value since the Iran-Israel war. Inflation was at 42.2%. Holy shit! And the protests started organically with shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar. Millions of people don't take to the streets because of foreign agents. They do it because they can't afford food. However, there is some Israeli involvement, though not in the way that Iran frames it. The Mossad's official Farsi Twitter account posted, "We are with you not only from a distance and verbally, we are with you in the field." And during the June 2025 war, Israel hijacked Iranian state TV, broadcasting footage of women's rights protests with a Farsi message urging people to take to the streets. But analysts are skeptical of meaningful on-the-ground orchestration. So there you go. There's the answer. That's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Protests were overwhelmingly organic and driven by economic collapse. Israel has opportunistically cheer-led and possibly provided some communication support, but the Israeli insurgents' framing is primarily a justification for mass murder. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments.